January and February. There wasn't much food. So what they'd do is they thought ahead, and they'd gather oysters, they'd smoke them over a fire and preserve them with a smoky flavor, and then they'd store them. And then in February, they'd shuck them, which means just taking them out of the shell, and they'd toss the shells in a big pile. We have those are called middens. Those shell piles have been dated 9 or more thousand years old.
Wow.
So we know people were doing that here right after the glacier,
Right.
and probably walking on these trails.
Right.
Okay, so
Right
we're
after the
this is
Ice
pretty-
Age.
Right after the Ice Age, thank you.
Which is when the Native, like I guess the Native Americans crossed over the Bering Strait.
That's the theory, yeah.
That's what the
Right.
belief
That's
is,
the-
and then
right
that's
here.
how they got to this side of the world.
Right.
But everything was together until
Right.
there was like a something, and then everything.
We spread out.
Right, and they couldn't cross those things anymore. But
Right.
before that, everything was together, and people could actually cross from one, I guess, continent to another.
And then people kept coming over by boats
Right.
at various times,
Mhm.
depending on the levels and everything.
Yes.
So this was a big oyster bay, and so people would come on the trail, the Tulpehoken Trail, Turtle Island Trail was right over on the other side of the park. They'd cross this trail, go all the way over to Strikers Bay, get all their oysters, and they would eat like kings. That's an expression, like statues.
Because
Okay.
oysters are like $2.50 a piece right now.
Okay.
Imagine
not
eating
more.
so much you make a mountain out of it.
Imagine
You'd
they
have to be a
have
millionaire today to do
Yeah.
that.
they had all. the
Well, yeah,
oysters
you go to
they
a
could eat.
restaurant and order oysters. It's very expensive.
Very expensive.
When Henry Hudson landed on Manhattan the first day, it was his birthday, by the way,
Oh.
and he traded trinkets for oysters. And he ate them, and he said, and this is why I like Henry Hudson, he said, "These are the finest oysters in the world." And he was from London, so he had that accent. "These are the finest oysters in the world," and everybody wrote that down. And he was right. Because we look back now, and we can be sure that the kind of oysters they had here, the raw waste and the blue point and all these, famous oysters, were the finest in the world. He knew right away. And that's because the people here really knew how to
Take care of them.
husband and say these kind of things. They had 7-foot-long lobsters.
Right.
Whoa!
Can you imagine swimming and finding a 7-foot-long lobster?
As big as this bench, guys.
Yeah,
I'm 5'4", so imagine it's like
yeah.
imagine one of those basketball players.
Right.
Name a basketball player that.
It's a
Shaquille
lobster.
O'Neal, right? So imagine a lobster as big as Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah, he's correct.
I can't even imagine that.
Some of the oysters got to be a foot across.
Wow.
They're big. Yeah.
Wow.
And the clams too. So they really knew how to do that.
And that's probably because everything was so much cleaner, and the Native Americans really took care of the land.
Yes.
Like it was like
Right.
the land was
Their
pristine.
mother, yeah.
You know, unfortunately now we've created such a mess in our.
Well, let me
beautiful planet.
comment on that because listen to me. This is
Let's
something
listen
you
carefully.
won't see, in your textbooks yet, not for a while. But I talked to on November, a humpback whale that we call Gotham came up the Hudson River and danced around on the Hudson. Did you hear about that?
You see these
I
pictures?
think I heard.
Yeah. He came past the Washington
This is
Bridge.
recently.
So George Washington Bridge.
Yeah, he came all the way
Uh-huh.
up, and he was 10 days dancing around in the river, and
Yes.
everybody took a picture. He was at the front page of all the
I
newspapers in
think
New York.
I
You know how
remember
hard that
that.
is?
It's amazing.
And he did that because
Yeah,
When he was eating Medhaven fish. But for 200 years, no whale said.
I was gonna say
"No."
that must have been strange because I never heard of a humpback whale being in the
Well, you kinda do.
Mohican, whatever.
They used to be here all the time. And the dolphins. There used to be lots of dolphins here.
Is it deep enough for them?
Oh, way
plenty
deep.
deep,
It's
plenty deep.
like
Okay, so
hundreds
what
and hundreds
happened?
of
Well,
feet.
what happened is that during the
It's so
revolution
crazy.
and before, there was all this pollution and all the whales and dolphins left. And they didn't come back at all. And in 2013, there were maybe 2 whales and 2 dolphins in the entire area. In 2014, people have been cleaning up the water of the Hudson, and it finally caught on, and the fish were good, and the population went up. And so the whales all came in, and the dolphins all came in 2014. The numbers I got from the foremost expert just a few days ago, he said it's 1,823 dolphins as a steady permanent population
Whoa!
Wow.
in our harbor, and 260 whales
Wow.
here in New York
Wow,
because
there
we
was a
cleaned the
huge
river up.
cleanup.
My goodness.
That's why we need to keep it clean.
Keep it clean, absolutely.
Okay. Okay,
Oh,
so
I'm
that's
sorry.
important stuff.
That's
Um,
incredible.
So I'm listening, where's the closest gate, do you know?
Right here at 93rd.
Oh, fine, let's go there.
All right.